Thank you everybody for showing up on time. So we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful webinar today. And today's topic is going to be how youth leadership development contributes to college success. And so we have some pretty sweet speakers today. We do have Professor Matthew Brown from Michigan's Ross Business School. And then we also have a student speaker, and we can call her Q. So she's going to be on. And so we're going to have some introductions here, but I'm going to be your host, Nathan Turner, and then Kala is going to be our host as well. So let's get on into it. It's going to be a really great Saturday afternoon or evening or morning or wherever you guys are from right now. And a little bit about us, if you haven't already known, Harmony Plus, we're an international learning ecosystem. We're out of Silicon Valley, and our mission is to upgrade education. And so a lot of these programs that you see, that you hear about, we are upgrading education so that we get more impact through this. And through that hybrid learning model, we leverage both in-person and online resources. Harmony Plus equips students with the skills they need to adapt and excel in this highly competitive professional environment. So with that, we have a few ways that we do that through education and service, online and offline resources, synchronous and asynchronous resources. We put theory and practice together. We have guidance from the top teachers around the country and around the globe. We have endorsement from leading universities such as Stanford, UC Berkeley, Michigan School of Business, and others. We also build a competitive advantage through these programs, and we enjoy a continuous improvement. So no matter when you start, we're going to see those improvements go all the way up through college and beyond. Okay, and then some of the universities that people have been admitted to are right here. Some of the top names in the country and thus in the world. Like I said, Michigan, Stanford, UC Berkeley, but also the top ones, Yale, Johns Hopkins, University of Chicago, Princeton, and so on. And so I'm going to be introducing Dr. Matthew Brown, who is going to be joining us for a number of times. And he has 25 years of teaching and consulting experience, 12 years of experience as outward bound instructor. And he does have a PhD in organizational behavior from the University of Michigan Ross School of Business, and coached senior executives and teams all over the country, from American Electric Power, DTE Energy, UC Boulder, NASA, Fiat and Chrysler, University of Virgin Islands, Fielding Graduate University. He has been everywhere. So he's really vast in leadership, and he's going to give us a great webinar today. He served as the University of Michigan William Davidson Institute Program Associate assigned in Uzbekistan. So he's not just here in the US, he is a global man. Led faculty for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Entrepreneurship Program in Rwanda. I mean, it's just fantastic what this guy has done. So we're really pleased to have him today and to talk about leadership. And then our student speaker today, Q, she's a rising junior, St. Anne's Belfield School in Virginia. So really excited to have her. She's one of our top students that we've had come through our programs, and she's still in our programs. So she's still got a long ways to go, but she's really inspiring to a lot of us. She's a small business owner. She is an art director of the Belfield Banter newspaper. She is the chief of the Plum Arts magazine. She is an aspiring business lawyer, aspiring human rights activist. I mean, at this age, we're really impressed with her and the direction that she's going. So we're going to have a really good session going forward. Okay, and then this is me. I can introduce myself. I'm gonna just started, so I'm a Harmony Plus business development specialist and education consultant. So I've been around the block a few times, and I have my MBA from the Harvard of the German-speaking world, University of St. Gallen over there in Switzerland, across the pond. I have 20 years of sales and marketing experience, so not quite as much as Dr. Brown, but I'm getting there. I'm going to catch up. So I have a startup experience at Zoom here in Harmony Plus, but also over in Europe with Portugal and Switzerland. And I did used to play college basketball, but again, that was like 25 years ago and probably 30 pounds ago. So, but I'm pretty much into basketball culture and how that works. And if you guys ever want to ask about how extracurricular activities can help you, I'm the person to talk to. And then our next host, we're going to have Kala. You guys are all familiar with her. She is now the Harmony Plus Chief of Staff. So she kind of runs things around here, keeps us in line, and she's a future leader Academy Program Manager. So what we're talking about, the FLA program. She's helped hundreds of students, and she's helping Q as well get into admissions to their dream schools. So Yale, Columbia, UC, Cornell, Johns Hopkins, NYU, UC Berkeley, UCLA, wherever you want to go, we can help you guys. She does have a master's in arts and East Asian studies from Stanford. She got a full scholarship to that program, and she speaks Chinese, and she's pretty impressive with that. So she does have a bachelor's in German, Chinese, East Asian studies. Really blessed to have Kala with us, and so she'll be helping out with this, hosting this webinar, and she's also taught English in 2 high schools in China as well. So she's been around the world. So that's the one theme about this panel, that we've been everywhere and we've talked to pretty much everybody on the planet. So here we are, and then the agenda, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to have a Q&A with Dr. Matt. We're going to talk about leadership. Same thing with Kala. Kala's going to have a Q&A with Q. And so after that, we're going to have an introduction to the FLA program and then general Q&As. So as with most webinars, we ask to maybe push off the questions until the end, but if you just can't hold it on any longer, write those questions in the chat box or in the Q&A button, and we're going to try to answer those questions as best we can. Okay, all right. Let's get on into it. So, all right, Dr. Matt is off mute, so we're gonna have to ask you some questions. So, Dr. Matt, we're gonna try to keep these limited, but expand on these as much as you can, and give the students a little bit of incitement into how the leadership works. So, first question: why is it important to demonstrate leadership on college applications?
From working, like you said, 25 years in higher education, one of the things I noticed is we don't tend to teach leadership until the end of someone's career. And we tend to believe there's kind of a bias that people don't assume leadership positions until their later years. And I think that's how the world has been turned upside down. We're learning now that it's better to introduce young people to leadership curricula right early on, so that they can begin their journey, they can practice. It's not a mystical or magical kind of thing. It's something as Q and her profile demonstrates in the things that she wants to do. So it's important to demonstrate leadership in college application. If you think about it, if you want to be brutally honest about what college and the higher education system sells, it sells elitism. And if you don't believe that, you really should take a look at how the whole system is structured. But we want to believe that it sells equity and inclusion as well. And that's why there's so much energy around that idea that it's accessible to everyone. Well, to make it accessible to everyone, we have to basically show younger people what it is that college admissions offices, what they're doing, because there's only so many seats at so many universities. Now, it is true that there's 4,300 universities in the United States, but there's only about 155 of them of what they call consequence. And so a lot of parents, they want their kids to go to these big time schools. And that's about 1.5 million students out of about 15 million that apply every year. So it's important for us to provide, I want to say, supplemental education that's more than just a 1,600 score on your SAT. Because what colleges and universities are looking for now is a well-rounded, high potential, leadership inclined student admit. And that's how you sort of step up and present yourself as an outstanding student or outstanding applicant.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's not just grades. I think we're coming into that age where people are realizing that it's getting more competitive and more competitive as we go along every single year.
I want to stop you right there, Nathan. I want you to try to do this. Instead of saying competitive, I want you to say collaborative, because it's like the hand. It's like competitive on one side, collaborative on the other. And let's say competitive on this side, and we're always getting slapped in the face with competitive. So, what we're trying to do is actually say, look, you want to be a collaborative leader. Sure, you want to compete, but let's emphasize the collaboration rather than the competition. Okay.
Very
Anyway,
nicely
I'm sorry.
said.
I just had to break in with that because I'm trying to
No,
change the narrative.
that was brilliant. Yeah, because people are competing, and it's such a hardcore phenomenon. Like collaboration is where we are right now. So that's a
Well, you know
great
what
point.
happens is like at Ross, it's incredibly competitive to get into the school. But once you get into the school, that's all they talk about is collaboration. And I'm thinking to myself, what a strange experience. And students tell me about this. Oh, I had to carry a 3.93 in my freshman year to get accepted into the school in my sophomore year. I'm thinking, wow, that's really a shame. And then how do I distinguish one student from another? No, they're all the same. So we might as well just forget about the competition and start really working at collaborative leadership. And that's what we do.
Let's change it. Let's upgrade this education. Perfect.
Sure.
So the second question is, how can students gain leadership experiences that can guide their college application narratives?
Right. That's a great question to really, I mean, there's a number of really big answers to this question. There's a lot of things they can do. But like I was saying earlier, it's about changing the narrative and changing the perspective. And one of the things we do is, as Q probably remembers, we turn the world on its head, right? We flip the world over. And you know what? When you flip the world over in the MacArthur corrective map, the world looks different, right? It looks like more water, right? Who's the top country? Australia, So, the idea is we want to change students' perspective because they don't have an insight into what colleges are looking for from the vantage point that we do. And like you said, we've been everywhere. We talk to college admissions. I'm sure Calla can reinforce a lot of this. We kind of get an idea about what they're looking for, and it's a lot of things. And sure, they would like, all wonderful, STEM perfect, college enrollment so they could fill all their science courses, all their math classes. But it's not really about that. We want well-rounded people. We want student graduates that come out of the system that are well-rounded, that are very mature, that are, they're ready to lead from day one. And that's what companies are looking for. And that's what top business schools are looking for. They want students that have a wide range of experiences, but they also want them to know something about process, like team processes, how to run a project. There's a lot of sort of skills that are not presented in sort of a very clear and definitive way in a lot of courses. They're all contextually specific. So we pull that curriculum out and try to give them a little bit of a leading edge, and calling it leadership, demonstration. So that's what we do. Plus, there's a lot of things like volunteering and stuff, and a lot of service type experiences that really, work well with a college profile, portfolio as they look for admittance into a big school.
Yeah. I think most people, when they think of leadership, they think, oh, crud, I have to be the captain of the basketball team, or I have to lead the debate team. I have to be the top person. But leadership experiences, like you're saying, can come from anywhere. As long as you're working with a team, try to find those type of experiences.
Well, here's the thing, one thing we don't like to admit is, first of all, we don't like to admit that leaders aren't born or they're not innate. We all start out as followers. We all start out as infants. We grow into it. We learn leadership. And we have to be sometimes cajoled, into that role. But typically what happens is you emerge into that role. You become a courageous follower first. And you learn some of the activities and some of the demonstrations that make you stand out as a potential leader so that you rise to the leadership kind of, responsibility or that role. People don't become captain of the basketball team just because they're, the best dribbler or the best foul shooter or whatever. They know how to run the team. They know how to motivate other people. They know how to get the best performance out of the other teammates. And that's what we try to talk about and we try to learn.
Yep. And this might come up later, but when we look at Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, we think that they were like that the entire time. But those guys had to follow somebody in their life. And so, yeah, being a good leader, you have to be a good follower. Absolutely.
Well, you could find out intimate details from that from Esther, who was a mentor of Steve Jobs for like 30 years. So we have a dean that actually was the mentor of a person like Steve Jobs. Okay, so come and join us at Harmony Plus, and you'll learn all about those kinds of leadership, development processes.
Definitely. Awesome. So next question, how can students develop leadership skills in middle school and high school that can lead to college and career success?
I actually want to turn this over to like Q and say, Q, you know how to answer this question. I mean, if you think about it, I mentioned service. Okay, so in the first module that we teach in leadership development and the FLA program, we talk about what servant leadership is. This is an area of leadership skills that is, it's not the most glamorous, but it really means that you go someplace and you lend yourself. You don't even have to have any skills. You just have to show up, and you learn as you go. Imagine you show up at a senior citizen home, and all they want you to do as a volunteer is go and talk to the elderly people, keep them when they're having their day activities, and just interact with them and be friendly and be compassionate and show some empathy. And that's what you end up learning by engaging with people. Learning is always social. It's always social. You don't learn by yourself in a vacuum. And like you said, we want to get away from that quiz and homework and blah blah blah. Yeah, well, what we're trying to do is push the collaborative envelope. Now, we have some constraints because we're on Zoom. Look what we're doing right now. But this is a very collaborative kind of, environment as well. So, you can start in middle school. High school is such a great forum for project-based, team-based type initiatives. There's a lot of students that learn this. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of high school instructors, teachers that are experts in team building, or but there's enough of that curriculum to get them started. We're kind of in that transition between high school and college, and because of my experience, I'm trying to give them a preview of what they're going to do in college and how they're going to learn. So we talk about learning styles and how learning is presented in college, because the transition from high school to college is traumatic for a lot of students. And this is why for 100 years, we've had 50% sort of, attrition rates in the freshman year in college. It's tough for a lot of students, even at the top schools. And they do all kinds of amazing things to try to keep students involved and keep them enrolled. In fact, my dissertation was about a thing called residential learning communities. And this is a way to make a big school like the University of Michigan with 50,000 students, very small, down to like 25 to 50 students. And all those students study together, and they have they have linked, activities, and they live in the same quad, and they do all these things. And it's really all about the social cohesion that they build while they, are learning in the sort of hyper competitive environment. So they work together and they come out, it's amazing. And when I did the research on this, their retention rates were somewhere around 85%. So it's an amazing kind of thing. Are high school students, high school teachers going to know about that? No, they're not going to know about it. Are college admissions officers going to know about that? A little bit, but they're still on the fringe. I went and asked college admissions officers about residential learning communities, and they just went, yeah, we have some, but they didn't know anything about them. So there's a lot of schools that have very innovative, programs that help with with retention. But it's a complex question to ask, what kind of leadership skills can young people learn. There's a lot of them, and right now we've already had 2 modules where there's like 12 specific skill sets that the students help identify, and they build their own model, which is really amazing. They build their own like sort of team-based model of what leadership is. Leadership is a big idea. Nobody knows exactly what it is, right? It's a big idea. So there's room under this big umbrella for all kinds of, perspectives. So one of the things we try to do at FLA is get the students to help us as architects, get the students to help us as builders. as developers. And this is why I encourage them to participate in the publishing process. We just had a journal article at a peer-reviewed academic journal. We just had that published. It took like 4 months to do. I mean, that's a really unusual kind of effort to take place. But that's kind of like at the end of our process. There's a lot of things you can do, and I really encourage you to learn as much as you can about our program, because the things that we provide, the activities that we're sort of introducing to students, are not available in the same way and sort of in a package that we can present to your students. So if you want, if you're interested in them having an advantage going into college, this is where you want to stop, and you want to get involved in this.
Definitely. And when you think of just the word skills, so it's not leadership knowledge where you can just learn about something, read about something. Skills, how do we develop skills? We have to practice it.
Well, you have to do it. Yeah.
You have to do it. Yep. Yeah. And if you first start out as a leader and you fail, just keep trying, because you're going to get better and you're going to learn and you're going to develop into a more leader.
I'll give you, if we have just a minute, I'll give you a real quick example. I know, and I talk really fast and I have a lot to say on this, a lot of energy, but let me give you the simplest answer I can think about just a basic leadership skill. If you think about what leaders need, really basic, I mean, just fundamental type things. Leaders have to be sort of in charge, or at least understand their own well-being, because you can't lead people if you're not right, if you're not fit, right? So we say, okay, if maybe leadership depends to a certain degree on the element of well-being. So how do you develop well-being? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it, obviously, but one of the things we do in FLA is we have them collaboratively work on what is called a well-being calendar. And a well-being calendar has got a fun little device where you come up with an activity once a day. You do something exclusively to improve your well-being, okay? So then at the end of this activity, you have a 30-day little calendar in one day. Now, obviously, it's up to the student to actually do the one thing every day, and it's really hard. I know they don't. They might start off and it falls off the table or whatever. But the very idea of them putting it together, and the more you encourage them to collaborate and compete and whatever and gamify it, sometimes they pick it up. Now, we do a lot of activities like that, and they're not going to get excited about every one of them, but together there's a package, there's a program, there's a cohesive curriculum that forms a kind of a platform. It's a toolbox. It's a toolbox that they can take with them when they go to college and they can continue to work on. Remember, I told you, Q, never get rid of your portfolio. It's always going to be available, and you can always go back to it. And you can teach other people those kinds of things. And that would even enhance your leadership experience as well. But it's like the blacksmith. And I say this all the time to every class I've ever had. What we do that's different than any other course is like the blacksmith, because blacksmiths are the only artisans that make their own tools. They fashion their own tools out of the metal that they shape and mold to create other things like horseshoes or whatever. But the blacksmith is the one that builds things by making their own tools first. And I want to emphasize that that's what middle school and high school can do. Introduce students, empower them by helping them build their own tools. Okay? That's my soapbox. That's the whole thing in a nutshell.
No, everybody's going to remember blacksmith and how that works. So that was brilliant.
Good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
sorry, I've been really going on.
No,
this is what happens. Alan knows me really well. When I start on it, I just go.
And
different
in your
leadership programs. Okay.
Yeah. In your experience, how is it different from other leadership programs?
Well, I'll tell you what it's like. A couple of years back, I was invited to teach. It's sort of like when you get to your senior years in university, sometimes they give you other things to do so you don't get tired out just teaching the same thing over. I started teaching executive ed. And executive ed is really an interesting kind of world. where it's people like, Bill Zhao, CEOs of companies and stuff, and leaders of companies. They come in and they pay exorbitant amounts of money to spend some time with professors like myself. And, we teach them, they teach us. It's kind of interesting collaboration and talking about providing a forum for them to examine closely together with other CEOs, what's going on in sort of the world of leadership. They are already leaders. And then we kind of have our little, things that we do a lot of coaching, and we try to figure out what it is they need. And then we present, ideas for them and different kinds of things. How is Future Leader Academy different from other leadership programs? Well, it's kind of like an executive ed program for high school students. And you know how it works. There's kind of a structured, a ladder. We like high school is compulsory. Then you move into the world of higher education or post-secondary education, graduate school. Maybe you go on to do a PhD like myself, a foolish kind of enterprise, and then you become a professor. Now, the whole higher education system is really designed to produce researchers and professors. But there's people that spill out that become practitioners, and they become CEOs of companies. They start their own, and business schools as professional development entities are sort of charged with producing the MBAs that are potential future leaders of business, all that kind of stuff. But what I'm fascinated by is that the lessons you teach a CEO and the kinds of things that you talk about are not irrelevant to a high school student. Running a team of C-suite executives, believe it or not, has a lot of overlap with just doing, a simple journalism project in a high school, class that somebody like Esther teaches. The same dynamics exist. Teams go through the same kinds of things. And so what's really interesting to me is seeing it from a lot of different levels is why can't we deliver this to younger students and start them on the path? I don't pretend that every student's going to be a potential CEO, but what I want to do is give them tools that'll help them succeed in whatever they do, right? I can't teach you organic chemistry and then pretend that it's going to help you in everything you do. You see what I mean? But I can teach you leadership skills that you can translate to any context, right? How to run a project, how to lead a team, how to be a courageous follower, how to improve your well-being, how to understand how you learn. There's a lot of things that you can teach. We've got about 36 workshops that we can, deliver in 6 different modules. If you take all of our FLA programs, forget it. You don't even need to go to college. What do you need to go to college for? No, I'm just kidding. I would never say that to a parent. But no, it's that kind of thing. It's a different kind of education, and that's why we call it supplemental education. It's a really good investment, for your child, because it's going to help them stand out.
Yep, definitely. That's the bottom line right there.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I know I probably used up all my time.
I think you're spot on. It's 5:30, so we're going to hand it over to Kala and Q. But do you have any parting words before we hand it over?
Q has just been through our second series. She was a fantastic student. I think she's got an incredible amount of potential. In fact, where she is now is where, oh my God, there's so many students. I can't tell you, Q, how far ahead of so many students you are. But I want you to be, take that, and I want you to really make something of it. And, 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, we're going to be coming to look for you so you can teach in this program. So just be ready. Okay. All right. That's all I got to say. Good luck.
Great. Thanks, Professor. All right. Over to you, Kala.
Okay. So now we'll do Q&A with Q. It has a nice ring to it. Okay, so just to remind you about Q's background, there it is again, but no need to go through that. So she's a high school student. And then, just to start out this Q&A session. So Q, maybe you can let us know what kinds of leadership activities you're currently involved in.
Yeah. So like previously mentioned in my bio, I currently serve as the art director for my school newspaper, as well as a writer for a branch of 21st Century Teens in China, actually. So it's remote. I think although the position isn't like the chief editor at the very top, one thing I would like to bring back to what Professor Matt said is not competitive leadership, but collaborative. Because when you think about it, leadership isn't trying to make yourself superior about everyone else, but being able to work fully with a team. And I think a lot of the current associations that I'm working with, it's a lot about collaborating again. Such activities include what I mentioned with participating in my school newspaper, as well as running the Plum Art magazine. So about that, how I plan to project my leadership skills from what I've gained here is in order to accumulate enough art posts to actually make the magazine happen, I need to reach out to a variety of artists in our school and outside our school. And that type of connection and being able to work with various people who I might not know before is demanding leadership to be able to open to new people and talk to them. And I think that is one of the challenging activities that I'm actively participating in. So another thing, again, like what Professor Matt said earlier, I think it was really good. It is that leadership isn't only present in leaders, it is in everyone of a team. You cannot be the top person and still demonstrate a great amount of leadership assets. Like starting from a courageous follower leads to opportunities for you to actually be the leader. The thing is, a lot of people think, oh, I don't get to demonstrate leadership in activities because I am not the leader. But that is not true, because everybody's saying that, and you don't just immediately get to be the leader. It's an opportunity. And the relationship is that you start the same as everyone else, and by demonstrating that you already have the amount of leadership, that is what makes you stand out, and that is what makes you the actual leader. So I think that's a little bit expansion on what I just said earlier. Last year, and I was not an remote director of the newspaper at all. I was just someone that would occasionally write and would help out whenever I could. And I think that amount of, I guess, hard work, got me noticed. And that is how I was promoted to this honorable position in my current school newspaper, as well as the one abroad. So connections and collaborative work is really important. I guess that's my final conclusion on the first question.
Sure, absolutely. You made a lot of really good points there. So you're really hustling to work your way up, it sounds like. Nice. I'm not surprised by that, though. Okay, so now let's look at our second question. So as a young person yourself, why is it important for young people to learn leadership skills?
Yeah, from the direct sense of in a team, or at least for me, I think that leadership is important in a leader so that you could guide your group to pursue a common goal, I guess. And it is important because then you are younger teenagers, like scientifically speaking and psychologically speaking, that is the age where we are most prone to build relationships, and we're open to develop and adapt to different surroundings and communities. So to know everybody and ensure that everybody is on task and have motivation to stay together, like right now, our age is the best time to build that. And individually, if you're not working in a group and just independently, leadership can still help one build self-discipline. And something like that, it is always better to start young, because then you started building into the habit and it will follow you later into life. So if you're in college or in work, I don't know from experience yet, but I'm assuming that's how it's going to go. And once you build that habit now, it's going to follow you for the rest of your life. And it's much easier and beneficial to start early than late. And additionally, this might seem off topic, but it really isn't. And that is, it is leadership skills helps oneself become aware. It may not seem to have correlation to like the surface meaning of leadership, but a great part of what it is being aware of everything that's happening around you, within you. And by acknowledging and being aware, you build sympathy, you raise your EQ, emotional intelligence. And that is, or at least what I perceive as the actual core of leadership. Because when we talk about leadership, there's like a lot of branches that you think. But for me, I think what I look for the most in a person that I would think as a leader or demonstrate great assets is one that has the capability and emotional flexibility to be aware of what is happening and being able to adapt to certain occasions. And the reason why I believe that it is important for young people to start doing it now instead of doing it late, first of all, like Professor Matt said, the opportunity is equal to everyone. It's not something that only happens when you're halfway in life, but instead, if you start building it now, it helps, it trains your brain to perceive the world from a different perspective. And I think that by acknowledging what is happening in the world, so in a big cliche sense, in summary, it's important to start learning about leadership now so that you can give back to the world. So for the greater common good.
Absolutely. Thanks for that very thorough explanation of that. Okay, and now let's talk a little bit about FLA. So what was your favorite part?
My favorite part, so I really enjoyed the group discussions and all of the thoughtful questions that were asked to us by the professors or the ones that my peers asked in return. I think the activities really encourage us as students to think outside the box. And some activities also forces us to collaborate in order to discover an answer that it's difficult to realize by oneself. Personally, I used to be a lone wolf. I like working independently, so I have a tendency to like hoard all the work. But I think because of how the program is designed, it intentionally makes all of the members to work collaboratively in order to build problem solving. So I think that really hits like the another important component of leadership, because that again, it's teamwork and you can't do that independently. So I think that's one of the major parts of FOA, the practical sense, that I really like. And in terms of just like a fun portion for me as like a teenager is that the activities are really fun, either as the classworks or the assignments that we do after. Like they're not what you're expecting. It's really outside the box. I remember that we solved riddles. There was role playing that we were pretending to be stranded in the middle of the ocean. That's one of my favorite activities. And again, just really thinking outside the box. Activities weren't expected, your peers to do something unexpected, and it trains you to do the unexpected. So overall, the experience, it was really fun, which made it enjoyable. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that, Q. Yeah, we did have a lot of great discussions, and actually you always had very insightful things to say. And I also love that Lost at Sea activity too. That's a really fun one.
Yeah.
Even though I've done it multiple times, as a program manager for this, I still enjoy it every single time. Okay, well, so we talked about the favorite parts. Now let's talk about what challenged you the most in FLA.
Okay, this is a really good question. I thought about this one. So ironically, working in a team was the most difficult for me in the process of attending FLA. And it's ironic because its entire thing is about working in a team. So I think that reason it's pretty subject to myself, because I personally, like previously stated, I'm a lone wolf. I like working independently. So I tend to only trust myself to do what we're supposed to do. But however, with the requirements of this program, I'm forced to communicate with my peers And due to the reasons of COVID and the inability to communicate in person, this made working effectively in a team outside of class extremely difficult. However, that challenged me to also match my abilities to practice myself as a leader to reach out outside of the class to other people, which isn't what I expected myself to do. But it is what happened. I reach out to my peers individually outside so we can discuss something outside of what we're already expected to do. And I think that really surprised me. And that was sourced from the conflict that challenged me. So personally, I find that interesting. And additionally, another challenge that I faced is that the people attending the class, every single one of them are on different levels of understanding. And sometimes it is difficult if you're only thinking about yourself and not being aware of others. Like previously mentioned, you can easily get lost in like which page everyone is on. So I think while that is a conflict, that also means that is what I need training on. So it also helped made me aware of what I need to continue to work on. So I think although it is a challenge, I think it was beneficial in the end for me to realize that. Yeah.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you did a pretty good job collaborating with people, even though you did used to be the lone wolf and hoard the responsibilities. I think you did a nice job of collaborating. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the takeaways from FLA. So how has everything that you learned in FLA helped you since the end of class? And how have you exhibited your new leadership skills since completing FLA AILS?
Yeah. So again, my interpretation on leadership is vague because it expands to so many different categories and you can talk so much about every one of them. So although it might seem off topic because the leadership traits due to the restriction of COVID, many programs are shut down, you can't directly utilize the direct surface definition of what people usually perceive leadership traits as. I did use a lot of the skills I have learned in everyday activities outside. So one thing I did in school was that, well, I starting to think about college early, and then I was making my FLA website. So that helped me realize a lot and what I was strong in and what I was lacking in and what I need to continue working on. And again, back to that word, it made me more aware of who I am, of what I'm strong at, what I'm not as strong at, and what I need to continue to build on. And additionally, just recently, I again noticed I've been utilizing the skills when I've been summer job hunting recently. And one thing is that I had to utilize these skills because it is something that's new for me that I've never done before. And I would like to throw back to what Professor Matt said earlier about blacksmiths. We build our own tools. I think that is one of the best metaphors I've ever heard. It just really stuck to me and I didn't even notice it until he just said it earlier. But after that, I noticed that I've been training myself to explore outside of my comfort zone and building new skills from my experience as a person and from FLA. Like recently, job hunting, and I'm a super picky about what type of jobs I want. And so I had to reach out to various corporations, and each one of them had their own wants and needs and differences. So I had to improvise on the spot for each. The problem was that required fast thinking on the spot because there was no one else to help me. I didn't have any support from my teachers or my parents because it's all on me. So I had to improvise and be my own mentor, be my blacksmith, and create tools and invent new skills on the spot. And I think the skill to build skills is a very complicated process that is developed in your brain subconsciously. And I think that is one of the very overlooked traits in leadership, and that is being able to think on the fly. I think FLA really helped me that by always throwing unexpected assignment answers, like thinking outside of the box and improvising. I found that to happen with me recently, I guess. So I know that doesn't directly sound like it's related, but it really is, because if you think about, again, there's a blacksmith, building your own tools, inventing skills from is a skill. And yeah, I hope that made sense and I wasn't just go running on.
No, not at all. Well, it sounds like you gained a lot of good knowledge and skills that you've been able to directly apply. So that's great. Okay. So how do you think, all of this knowledge and all of these skills that you gain in FLA will help you in the future, especially on your college applications and in your future career?
I think I answered a small portion of that question in my earlier answer as well, because and it wasn't even intentional other than what I mentioned about being job hunting. I think that's something happening now because I'm looking for a summer job, and it is obviously going to reoccur in the future when I'm looking for like a more lasting job, as in maybe like a business or like a lawyer or something that I really want to do. The process is going to repeat itself again, and because I have the experience now, I will have more experience in the future when I repeat the process and come back stronger. On college applications, well, other than the obvious letters of recommendations, another thing would be how it helps you realize what you are strong at, how you compare to other people, and again, back to the blacksmiths, it teaches you how to continue to build what you need to build. So first of all, it helps you realizes what you're good at and what you are not as good at. And second of all, it lets you know how you continue to build on what you already have. I think that works both in college applications and in the future career. And in general, in terms of actual applying to college, I think that your entire exploration as a leader will make a pretty interesting college essay story, maybe even. Because again, leadership is so vague and broad, you can connect everything back to it. So I think that is something that would definitely be beneficial and worth to think about in the future. Yeah.
Sure. So sounds like it'll be pretty helpful. Okay, and then do you have any advice in regards to developing leadership skills for other students out there?
Yes, I do. One advice I have for you and for your future group, if you plan on attending, it's definitely try to be a little more confident in yourself, because again, there are no wrong answers or wrong way to do something in FLA. The biggest wrong you can do is not do anything at all. Understanding your own and other people's complications are also important in terms of both demonstrating leadership and as to participate so you could get the most out of the program. So one thing is that communications are really important. The lack of communications is one of the biggest struggles. I didn't have a lot of struggles, but if I had to pick one, again, it's communications with my peers, because I feel like the community is really unbalanced. Some of us like to talk a lot, but doesn't listen as much. And other people listens a lot, but doesn't give enough feedback. So there was a misbalance on what everybody was anticipating from each other. So what Ether said during our quick interview when she visited during our program was that the two biggest important traits of leader, one is that you have to be able to talk and understand. And the second one, just as important, if not even more so, is that you have to be a good listener. So I think those are the two biggest advice I'm going to give. Talk a lot, but also listen a lot.
Sure. I think that's really, really good advice.
That's tough to do.
Absolutely. Okay, and then the last question, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any final thoughts?
Not in particular. Overall, I think about the entire FLA experience, I guess. Um, Enjoy yourself. It's really fun. When I came here, I thought it was gonna be like, oh, it's like another college course or something, but it's really not. It's kind of like a camp if you think about it, and it's like a mental embark on an adventure to explore something new, and you have to be open to that type of exploration outside of your comfort zone, and just don't try to anticipate what's happening, and instead try and think about everything in a philosophical way, how it connects to yourself. And again, explore it outside the course, because a lot of this, as vague as it is, it's actual real world application that you can use in the real world, even if it doesn't seem to have a direct correlation. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for all of those great thoughts, Q. Really insightful information. And now for the next few minutes, we'll just transition into some details about FLA. And then towards the very end, we'll have general Q&A about the program and leadership in general. Okay, so how specifically can you leverage your leadership skills on your college applications? Well, you can join our Future Leader Academy. So here are some of the highlights. Students do have the opportunity to co-author an article about leadership. And actually, Professor Matt has the galley proof already. So for people who are really interested in FLA, we can definitely show you that. And I have a picture of the article on a slide in just a little bit. Another big takeaway is that you can learn from a faculty associate from one of the top business schools in America. So the University of Michigan Ross School of Business. Professor Matt is very experienced. Then students also complete a Harmony Plus leadership portfolio. So they will have that URL that they can add to their college applications and share with admissions officers. Students can participate in those MBA or executive level activities that are tailored just for them. So don't worry, it's not too advanced, but still some of the same things that they do at like Harvard Business School, for instance. They like to do that Lost at Sea activity on the first day, I heard. So a lot of business schools are doing that activity. There's also the chance to receive a recommendation letter. Okay, so the top 30% of students get that, and actually Q was one of our students this past time. Then you can, of course, gain leadership skills applicable to a variety of situations, just like Q mentioned before. And we also will award all students a certificate of completion at the end of the course. Okay, so here's what that journal article looks like. Okay, so you can see the students are co-authors here. So this was from our first module that we had a few months ago. Okay, so pretty exciting for students to be included in that academic journal article. Pretty rare thing. Okay, and then this was one of the highlights that Q was talking about. And actually, look, Q is right in the middle there, right next to Esther in that Zoom picture. Okay, so we had a lot of great discussions with her. Yes, thank you, Nathan, for circling that there. Okay, so Esther Wojcicki, if you don't know her, she is our Dean of Harmony Plus, and she's also considered to be the godmother of Silicon Valley. And she's the mother of the CEO of YouTube, CEO of 23andMe, and also a UCSF medical professor. So she certainly knows a thing or two about leadership as well. And actually, she and Professor Matt have been working closely together to develop the curriculum. Okay, and then finally, the Harmony Plus leadership portfolio. Okay, so these are just some snapshots of things that students could add to that. Of course, it's a whole web page and many sub web pages. So there'll be a lot of content, but these are just some ideas of like what students could write, and just a nice thing for those admissions officers to see. Okay, and then a few FAQs about FLA. So how does this module system work? Okay, well, we have 6 modules, okay, for the Future Leader Academy. So those are kind of like, programs or classes, if you will. And each module consists of 6 workshops. Workshops usually take place once a week, or this summer, actually, they'll take place 3 times a week. Okay, so it's kind of like our school year schedule there. But there will be 6 workshops, no matter what the schedule is. Each workshop is 2 hours in length. And at this point, still, just because of COVID, not everyone's vaccinated. So, we're still on Zoom. The other great thing about that is that we can have students from all over the country and even all over the world join this. So actually we had students on the West Coast, East Coast, Canada, and even in China do the last module. So, very international. So that's the great thing about using Zoom for classes, because students can literally connect with people on other sides of the world, which is, kind of unprecedented, right? It's a really great educational opportunity. Students complete assignments that are associated with each workshop, and students also complete the Harmony Plus Leadership portfolio. So they submit contributions to that after each workshop. And then there are 6 modules, so students sign up by module and can start anywhere. So it's not really a consecutive thing, which is nice. Okay, and then a really big question everyone asks, who can get a recommendation letter? So the top 30% of students. So those would be students who are really active in class, really putting a lot of effort into their portfolio, their journal article contribution, things like that. Okay, and then they'll get that recommendation letter at the end. And that can be really helpful, of course, for college applications, as well as internships, jobs that students want to apply for, and any other relevant situations. Okay, so then there are these 6 module themes, and the first 3 that we have listed here are the ones that we're doing this summer. We have more information on the next slide, so we can go more deeply into those. Okay, so here's what we're doing this summer. Of course, our instructor will be Professor Matt. We already introduced him. So yeah, the first module that will be running this summer is Discovering the Leader in You. So this is really going to focus on individual leadership, really making sure that you have that well-being. Professor Matt, is there anything you'd like to say about Discovering the Leader in You?
This is a good example of the, blacksmith metaphor. So I did some research. I scanned about 200 different sources, different research studies, and tried to come up with an amalgam of sort of the most fundamental kinds of skill sets that go into, and then, sort of listen to the students as I sort of presented them in sort of I want to say a raw form, like you take metal and you have to pound it out, so I listened to the students quite a bit to figure out what it is that might help them build a model for themselves. So the real takeaway from this particular module is a chance to collectively, as a group of students, build their own leadership model, a fundamental model. And if you do get a chance to take a look at the article, that's what makes this program unique. And this is what attracted the journal editors to be interested in this particular work, because we are presenting something quite different, and it's quite unusual outside of this sort of compulsory high school educational curriculum and facilitation. And I wanted to say that, the 3 big takeaways from this particular module, beyond the publication experience and contributing to that, is we put together a portfolio of assignments that allows the students to choose something from that portfolio to contribute to the publishing effort. But it also serves as the content that they deliver and present on their website. So their websites become a showcase of their own work. And that's a really important thing, because you want to be able to have a very, very elegant and attractive and economical way to show off what you've done that's different. And if they do a really fantastic job on both of those first 2, they get a recommendation letter that they can use as well for any kind of future opportunities or for future advocacy. So it's a really powerful set of things that we put together to help students build their own leadership brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next module that will be happening this summer is the Individual Leadership Practice Series, or ILPS. So this is actually the same as the module that Q did. We just kind of rebranded it. So now we're calling it ILPS.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is more advanced level individual leadership. And Professor Matt, would you like to say a little bit about this one and how it is different from the first module?
Just very briefly, it's a little bit different. In some ways, it's a little bit more advanced than the first module, and Q did a great job of representing sort of what what was learned and how it was presented. She already talks like a professor. That's what I mean. You're going to have to be an intern or something, because we can't afford to lose a student like you that has such elegant ways of articulating what we're trying to do, and you're proof positive that it's that it works. So this is a little bit different. I've actually had quite a bit of feedback response about this particular curriculum, this workshop, and there are audiences beyond high school students that want to do just this module. So I've been approached to actually present this module as it maybe even an executive ed, but it's very interesting. So there's some people from the California State University, Fielding Graduate University, they were actually very curious about what it is what it is we're doing. And they thought this might be a mini course or some kind of thing. So we'll see what happens, how this expands. But right now we're focused on helping students, with their college admissions, college preparedness, that kind of thing. And hopefully maybe, as we get the modules built out, we'll find different markets.
Yes, absolutely. And then our next module, the third module that'll be happening this summer, is called Collaborative Leadership, the Wisdom of Teams. So this is where students can focus even more on learning that team leadership. So Professor Matt, would you like to say a few words about this?
Just a couple words real quick is, we kind of present the 6 modules as the first 2 are sort of individual focused. The middle 2 are sort of team focused, the first collective kind of perspective. And then the final 2 are sort of organizational. And they're the most mature, the most complex, and the most sort of adaptive, dynamic kinds of things. So if you do the first, 2, you're ready to do the second 2, the second couplet. And then, all 6 modules comprises of, I'll tell you what it is. All 6 modules, in some ways, is a preview of I want to say, upper level college course in organizational behavior, which is really an introduction to social science. But what we do is we teach social science through the professional activities of organizational development and change consultants. Okay, now that's a bit much to conceptualize, but this would be like what I teach in my OB 301 course at Michigan. So 3rd year undergraduate experience. If you were to take, it actually would comprise maybe 2 courses, but what I'm doing is actually giving students a preview of what they would learn in the upper level in their college education, anywhere. I don't care if you're going to Switzerland at IMD, or the Harvard of the Swiss of Europe, actually, or if you're going to Harvard Business School, it's all the same. We all get PhDs, and then we all collaborate and learn each other's curriculum, and then we all share ideas and everything. That's the whole idea of the collegial nature of being a professor. But once you've been around for 20, 25 years, you learn that everybody in some ways does a little bit of a variation on the same thing. So these modules, and we don't have to go in, through all of them, but they're specifically designed to take students through a progression that progressively is more intensive, a little bit more complex, and a little bit more maybe vital to what they're going to be doing in their postgraduate experience when they start working. They'll be so far ahead of most people. And you know what? Let me give you some advice. It's really good to do Lost at Sea after you've done it once. And you learn a whole different set of skills. How do you participate in something that you already have previous knowledge in? The secret is out once you've done it. So how do you, present yourself when you have advanced knowledge of something? So it's something I talk about when students have done this. There's a lot of things like that that'll happen to you in college. Oh, we already did this in high school. Well, so what? Every time you do it, it's a new experience and a new skill set that you learn. Is this the second and fourth one?
That's
Yeah,
where you're
absolutely. Okay, and then
Oh, okay, junior. Yeah.
junior FLA. So we'll also have a module for the younger students. So the other three that we introduced are for high school students. And then this one is for younger ones.
You know, it was interesting. This morning I did a webinar in China. I was here, but I was in China because it's, 12 hours difference. And there's about 55 parents, and one of them asked us a question about the middle school program. And this is quite an experiment for us. I figured out, and I with Kala's help and with the Harmony Plus staff's help, how to translate executive ed to college to high school. Now we're trying to think about how to take FLA curriculum and morph it into something that would be amenable to middle school students, get them started even earlier. There's a lot of really smart kids out there, and one thing I've noticed is a lot of kids, they're on their computers all the time. They're 11 to 14 and they spend half their time, playing video games. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. And part of my mission in life is to get them outside, for one thing, because of my Outward Bound experience. And the other part of it is to get them to kind of invest in themselves. And I don't even care if I could create a program that was about learning leadership through gaming, I would do it, because I want to take my curriculum to the student, and I want the student to kind of tell me how they can learn through it. Hugh will teach us how to do stuff like that, right? I want to figure out how to get more student-centered, how to get more of you driving the learning process. That's why you're our best ambassador and our best resource for the kind of feedback we're looking for to build a kind of a program like this. So think about this, Q. I want you to think about, how would you teach a 12-year-old what you just learned in module 2?
Like actually just think about it, or like actually talk about it now?
Well, go ahead. Give me a 1-minute answer, and then we'll take some questions. Go ahead.
Cool.
What do you think?
Actually, after what you said about like gaming, there was an idea in my head, because like there's a lot of games nowadays. The market is, you want to encourage co-op, which is when you play with other players. And I think a way of demonstrating leadership is in group chats. You can organize and talk to people beforehand, like, okay, if we work together, this is how we can defeat this boss and everything. And it also trains you to say gratitude to them before and after they play the game. So when you are playing, you also demonstrate and be aware of how other players are responding. And you can even observe their tactics of how they tackle a specific dungeon or domain. And you can learn that and apply it when you're playing it by yourself. And that also builds a parallel when you're working outside of a video game, say in real life, and you learn from other people's mistakes, or you notice what they're good at, and you convert what is theirs into your own. And I think in terms of like gaming metaphor, that works too.
I want to tell you that there are executive education programs that executives pay $25,000. And in part of that week-long experience, they will play a video-based game, a platform-based game, say Conscious Capitalism, where they actually work together on a strategy to, work out some kind of business process or something like that. And they literally pay that much money to learn how to do this. MBAs do it too. There's all kinds of new, all kinds of new sort of software as a service kind of platforms and gamification of business strategy. But you're spot on. It's like you got to take whatever the curriculum, is designed to do, and you got to take it and put it in the context of the student. So I just want to say in final, thank you so much, Q, for doing this. And you're one of the best ambassadors that I've ever heard for the programs that we're doing. You're spot on what, we were hoping you'd say. We didn't script out what for your answers is all your own. And I really want to tell you, I really appreciate what you've done. I think you're a better ambassador than I am for the program.
Thank you.
I'm sure Kala would probably agree, and Nathan as well. So, I want to just say that this is a kind of an experiment. If you have a, 11 to 14-year-old student that you think is really ready for this kind of thing, I would encourage you to talk to us. And, don't just sign up. Get Kala and myself involved. I would be glad to talk to any parents about, what we're trying to do. And I will work with every student, and I give the students quite a bit of my time. I've actually sort of semi-retired because this particular effort and this initiative is beginning to look like a job. I thought I was going to retire, but that's not going to happen. So this is just too much fun and too interesting, and I don't think Esther's going to let me go. So I have to.
Say,
we have to.
We're
make
never
this
letting
work.
you go.
Yeah. Even though I'm not an employee. I was always like doing all this pro bono, and it's going to be fantastic. And we've been working on this for a year, and we've gotten so many, positive kinds of things from it. So we're on to something. So it's good.
Yep. Okay. So that was kind of an explanation of the different modules that we're offering. So here's the specific schedule. I'll email everyone who attended afterwards, and then you guys will have all of this in writing. But we'll be starting late July with the first module, second module, first part of August, and then in the second part of August we'll be having the team leadership module. So feel free to scan that QR code if you're interested. And actually on the next slide, it is the same QR code. So no worries, we can go on. And then, then JFLA is going to be happening in July and early August. Okay, and students can sign up for that as well, those younger students. Okay, so definitely contact us if you have questions, want to learn more about the process, and if you want to sign up. And there's also a ton of information on those web links that I shared with you guys in the chat.
Thanks very much, Kala. Nathan, great job, guys, as always.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Matt. And then coming up next week, we will be having our Dean, Esther. So she's been helping a lot with FLA, and she'll also be letting people know about what they should be doing with their child this summer. So this will especially be for the parents. And actually, I'll be hosting again next week. So if you want to see more of me hosting, you can come.
Very good.
Okay, feel free to join our WeChat group, and then we'll let you know when we're having events. Okay, so scan that. Okay, and I know we already went quite a bit over time. Any questions?
Okay.
I guess we do have one question. Professor Matt, are you familiar with an organization called ALYUS? I think
ALYUS?
That one is the American Youth
Leadership
Alliance of Youth Leaders in the United States.
Alliance of Youth Leaders. Yes, I am. Yeah. I don't know what their present programs are like, but yeah, I'm somewhat familiar. Is it a good program?
Is it good?
I'll tell you what.
Leadership?
Whoever asked this question, I want you to give them my email address, and I will give you, some good information about what. And I do have a contact there, so I might be able to have some referral, communication, and I'll find out what they're doing presently, and maybe add a couple other leadership development programs that they might want to investigate. So yeah, it's a good question. Off the top of my head, there's so many different leadership programs around, but yeah, I am familiar with it. Yes. Anyway, just something on the horizon. We may be testing out a new platform called Huddle Up. Huddle Up Learning is offered to provide us with a sort of access to their software program, and it really might enhance our program quite a bit. So we'll see. You'll be seeing information about this sort of piloted project that we're going to do, and this partnering that's probably going to take place. It's really exciting. I haven't even shared all the details with the staff yet because I just had the meeting yesterday, but really excited about what this potential platform might help us do. It's all about collaborative, activity with students, which is great. So a lot of cool things on the horizon.
Great, thanks, Professor Matt. And then, okay. Yeah, so the person who asked that previous question just said thank you. So I noted his email address, and I'll get you two in touch, okay?
Okay, very good.
Okay, and then someone else asked, what program is a good fit for an 8th grader going into 9th grade next year? So are we recommending JFLA or FLA in that situation?
The JFLA, yeah, the junior one. That would be really good for them to start off between 8th and 9th grade. So a lot of what will happen in that particular junior program will help them in the transition between middle school to high school. And so that's really important. So I want to tell whoever is asking that question to send us information about, what you would like to see. And maybe we can help, we have a little bit of co-creation with the project, because this is an experiment. This is the first time we're going to be doing it, driving this curriculum down to, younger and younger levels. This is probably as far as we go. I don't think an elementary school transition to middle school thing is going to happen, but we may, who knows, 50 years from now, they might be trying to identify leaders in 6th grade, I don't know, 5th grade. But, there's certain things that I think, an 8th grader is ready for. And if they're mature enough to kind of put themselves out there and into it, I think it could be really, really helpful for them. It's a difficult transition, I don't know, it might even be more difficult than high school to college in some ways. Yeah, a lot of peer pressure, right? So we'll try a little bit of positive peer, orientation, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to reach back into all of your, 8th and 9th grade experience sets, and you guys can contribute to this, and because you're a little closer to it than I am. I don't remember 8th grade. Well, I do, but yeah. I had a really tough middle school, oh my God, in Detroit. So, wow, we don't want to go there, but.
Age is just a number, Professor Matt.
That's right.
Just a number.
You want to be a better leader than, at 30 than you were in 8th grade, though. That's
hopefully. Let's hope that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then.
Well, I think those are all of our questions, and we're a bit over time, so we can probably wrap this up. Professor Matt, thank you so much for all of those insights. We're really excited for FLA, and really big ups to Q for giving such thorough explanations about everything. She's
Thank
really,
you,
really
Q.
Yeah, thank you so much, Q.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure. My pleasure. See you again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Are we having any kind of a post thing, or you want to just next meeting or whatever?